Hello, thank you for joining me today on Live with a Purpose. Today I'd like to talk to you about accidents or supposed accidents. Sometimes you hear people say, and perhaps you said it yourself, I think I've said it a few times, why am I here? I think I got here by accident. I shouldn't be here. What if I were somewhere else or born somewhere else around the world? We think it's just by chance that we're here, sort of by happenstance. But scripture says that God determined the places and times in which we should live. I think that means for all of humanity on earth in different places, for the seasons and the times. But I think it's also for individuals, for families, for communities, in a way that he might be able to reach us, that we may be able to seek him. In the book of Acts, chapter 17, 26 to 28, it says the following. And he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place, that they should seek God, and perhaps feel their way toward him and find him. Yet he is actually not far from each one of us, for in him we live and move and have our being, as even some of your own poets have said, for we are indeed his offspring. I think that's pretty clear. This is Paul speaking to these philosophers and politicians and elites at the Areopagus, sort of this fancy place for, these highfalutin, type people that all they did all day was pretty much have counsel and hear new philosophies and, just retire and, enjoy their wealth and their thinking. And Paul sort of goes there and he sees all these idols to all these gods. And yet he sees one that says to the unknown God. And Paul says, I know who that is. He's not like all these other ones and he doesn't need an image. For actually the way he ends up in his narrative, if you read it, he says that he sent his son Jesus to die and he was raised from the dead. At that point, they cut things off. But Paul got his point across, I think, to some of them, and some of them actually believed. Paul told them that they weren't there by chance, that none of us are. We're here by God's command, by his decrees. If you read in different translations, perhaps some will be a little more explicit, a little more modern English. But essentially, it says that God determined the times and periods in which we should live. And we are here for a purpose, wherever you might be listening to my voice today. You're there for a reason. And the reason is, he says right there, that we might seek him, that we might search for him, that we might explore, might research. God doesn't want to be overimposing on us. He wants us to be in relationship with him because we want to. Because as we continue to search for him, if we continue to ask questions, we find that he is a good God, that we do want him. We find all along, it continues to say that he is not far from us. He is essentially near us. He is right there. He is right here. We think that God is far away sometimes, but he's actually right there. He says, no, I'm here. Well, we might think, well, why aren't you doing what I ask you to do? Because God is not our servant. He is God. He is Lord. He is the creator. We are his servants. We are his creatures. And he's trying to teach us something. But sometimes we can't learn unless we're actually engaged. And we need to be involved in his ways. We need to find out who he is and what he wants. And then we find out who we are. That's the way that works, not the other way around. In him, Paul says, he ends up saying, in him we move and live and have our being. We breathe. These are sayings from their own poets. And Paul takes that and says, yeah, we agree with that. That makes sense. He explains the basic word, the basic understanding, the basic philosophy, worldview of life, that we know that there is more to this life than just being here by accident. We're here by purpose, by God's decree, by God's command, by God's directives, by God's order. God determined that he wants a family to be with him in eternity. And that's the mindset that we need to have. So, Lord, I'm here for a reason. Perhaps where you are, you're suffering. It's not fun right now, but there is joy that will await you in eternity. If you purpose to give your heart to the Lord, his grace will be sufficient. And if you are doing well and you are not very mindful of him and just doing the minimum, God requires much more. We have to be active learners. It says for us to seek him, to search for him, to explore. By being engaged, we find meaning, we find purpose, and then God's grace will be ever present in our lives. Then we will have joy and peace and confidence. Thank you for joining me today on Live with a Purpose.